Hello and welcome to the Majorly Undecided podcast. I'm your host, Kat Klaus. And remember, the whole reason we bring you these episodes is to expose you to a whole bunch of different paths, possible careers, and opportunities that you can take advantage of as a high school student or a college student, or the parent of someone who is a high school student or college student, to get ahead and to really dig in to possible paths for your career. Because if you're anything like me, you're thinking about those 10 things you know of in high school, and there are so many more opportunities out there. That's why I'm so excited to bring you today's interview, because oftentimes, especially in the arts and humanities, we hear, well, what are you going to do with that? What's your backup plan? And today's guest has taken so many amazing skills that she has to develop them to feed a passion and to serve. And I'm really excited for you to hear her story. Before I bring her onto the show, I want to read a little bit about her because she's an amazing individual. Andrea Hansen is from Bakersfield, California, where she began training with the Royal Academy of Dance at age 7. Andrea received her Bachelor's of Arts in Dance from Mercyhurst University and a Master's of Fine Arts at the University of Arizona in Choreography. She's trained at the American Ballet Theater, the San Francisco Conservatory of Dance, the Royal Academy of Dance Summer Intensives, and has danced professionally with ballet and contemporary dance companies across America. She's worked with renowned dance companies including Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, Ballet Hispanico, Martha Graham Dance Company, Hubbard Street Dance Chicago, and the Miami City Ballet during her time as the Performing Arts Coordinator at the Scottsdale Center for the Performing Arts. She's taught in higher education for over a decade, where she most recently served as Dance Program Director at Glendale Community College in Arizona. Andrea is a member of the National Dance Education Organization and the California Dance Education Association. She serves on the boards of the Fox Theater Foundation and the Arts and Humanities Executive Advisory Council at California State University, Bakersfield. She also teaches regularly at Poise Pilates and Bar, and she's the co-founder and current president of Kern Dance Alliance. Andrea is an incredible dancer, and having seen her dance, I remember, funny story before I bring her on the show, I started dance at a very late age. I started when I was very little, and my mom had asked me to make the decision between dancing and riding horses. And if you remember from my first introduction episode, I talked about how I was an avid horsewoman and I want to go to the Olympics. And so I chose horseback riding. And after my car accident, about a year later, I took a ballet class as a PE class in community college and fell in love with dance. And so I started at a dance studio, Patty Ashby's dance studio here in Bakersfield, California. And I was the oldest person in the beginning ballet class. I was with girls that were 10 to 13 years old, and slightly embarrassed about that, but it was okay. I loved dancing, and Andrea danced at Patty Ashby's, and I remember that she was not only, in my opinion, the best dancer there, but what was so important is that she was so warm and welcoming to every single dancer at the studio, including me, who was fumbling around just trying to learn things. She was such a good sportsman about everything and an amazing mentor and so encouraging. And so being able to reconnect with her later in life, I am so impressed with everything that she's achieved, and she really is one of the most generous and giving people you can ever meet. So it is my honor to introduce Andrea Hansen to the show. She gave an amazing interview. And at the end and in the show notes, we'll tell you a little bit more about the Kern Dance Alliance and how you might be able to get involved. If you are outside of the Kern County area, as Andrea says, I highly encourage you to get involved in the arts because they do really pay amazing dividends later. Without much ado, here's Andrea. Andrea, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. I'm so excited to share your story. You've gone through an amazing journey. So I want to start first by sharing your story a little bit. So can you tell us a little bit more about when you started dancing and going to college, what was that like? And then how did you decide on your major? Ooh, that's a whole bunch of questions all at once. But can you share your story with us?
Yeah, hi, Kat. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm so happy to talk with you and your students and March Consulting. I think you're doing great things for our students, so I'm happy to at least give a little bit of information to add to your library of professionals speaking through this series. So I'm a dancer, and it's funny because I'm not in the studio as much these days. I'm much more of an arts administrator, but I still say I'm a dancer because I have a good 30 years of training behind me. But I fell into dance literally because a dance studio opened up next door to my house when I was 7 years old. I mean, talk about kind of like a happy meeting point. You know, I was playing volleyball and running track. And then all of a sudden, a dance studio opened up right next door to my house growing up. And the day the studio opened, I took my very first dance class, and I still remember it to this day. I remember wearing a pink leotard and having my hair in a bun. And I remember walking into the dance studio and putting my hands on my hips and bringing my toes up to my knees and doing stork walks around the studio. Isn't that funny? I can still remember that 30 years ago. And that moment truly changed my life. I fell in love with dance the moment I stepped into that dance studio.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. And it's amazing that you remember that. Your stork walk.
I do. I think I think we have lots of poignant moments in our lives of memories, you know, and that is definitely one of the moments I always reflect on, especially because I'm a mother now and I have a son and a daughter. And I've seen them both step into the dance studio to try their first dance classes, and I watched their eyes glisten. And it's a magical place, and magical things happen inside of dance studios and really within the realm of the arts. And I was so fortunate to be placed under the spell of magic, and dance has been a part of my life ever since that moment.
So you danced from 7 on, and then in any professional area, whether it's volleyball or dance or football, there's a moment in your teenage years where you wonder if do I want to keep doing this, or maybe I want to go over here instead, or when did you decide that you wanted to do dance in college?
Yeah, so actually in seventh grade, I was still, doing sports and doing dance. And my dance teacher had a conference with my mom and I, and she said, Andrea, you do possess some special talents as a dancer, and you do need to make a decision. If this is the route you're going to go, you need to really dedicate yourself to just dance and dance alone. And I really made that decision when I was in seventh grade, that dance was going to be my thing. And then at this point, I mean, how old are you in seventh grade? I don't know, 11 years old. So I had, 4 years of dance training behind me. I'd done, lots of really great performances. I had been bitten by the bug. So I made the decision. Seventh grade, dance was going to be my thing. In eighth grade, I was accepted to the American Ballet Theater to train in New York City. And off I went for the summer, and I danced with some of the best dancers in the entire world for 6 weeks. And I lived in New York, of course, that's every dancer's dream. And that was another moment for me where, wow, this dance thing, I love it. And this is going to be a part of my life. And, I entered high school, and I continued training seriously and going away for summer. But to answer your question about when did I decide about dancing in college, I remember another poignant moment of memory. I remember my dad asking me, "So Andrew, what do you want to do when you grow up?" And I said, "Well, Dad, I want to dance." And he said, "Well, you can dance, but you need to make sure you have the thing that you fall back on." And at this point, this was probably freshman year of high school, maybe. And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, dance might not always pan out. So you need to make sure that you've got a backup plan." And I had just started kind of getting into politics at this time, too. And so I decided once I started looking into colleges, I was going to be looking for a really strong program that was not just dance, but also political science. So, fast forward to senior year of high school and applying to colleges and universities. I made the decision to apply to a small liberal arts college in Pennsylvania called Mercyhurst University. And their ballet program was top 10 in the country. And they also had a really strong political science program. It was 3,000 miles away, but it was also a Catholic school, and my mom and dad liked that. And my dad always tells me funny stories. He said, I always talk to my friends when they were getting ready to send their kids away to schools, and they said, don't worry, if it snows there, she'll study because she'll have nothing else to do. And it snows a lot in Erie, Pennsylvania. I mean, more than any other place. I think in this country, I think my freshman year, it was like 138 inches of snow in like 4 months. It was crazy. And yeah, I studied. And I danced a lot and I worked really hard. But back to your question, in high school, I talked to my parents about it, and they were really realistic that dance might not pan out for me. And luckily it has, but I had that political science thing to fall back on. And so that's
And I bet a lot of the things that you learned from political science have just helped your skill set for navigating life in general.
Yeah, if you were to tell me today how much I would really use my poli-sci and dance degree in tandem, I'd say you're crazy. But I mean, part of politics is learning the craft of persuasive conversation, and being able to persuade somebody to think one way or another about something. And luckily, I have become a very strong advocate for dance and the arts. And that's because I have really crafted my persuasion conversation about how to tell people about why dance and the arts are important to not just my life, but to other people's lives all across this world.
That's incredible. And then so when you went to college, so you have your poli-sci degree and then you're dancing, what was the next step after that? Because senior year of college, you start going, oh, okay, what's next?
Where am I going next? My freshman year of college, let's put it this way. My entire undergraduate career was blessed with incredible instructors and faculty members. And I saw how nurturing and giving, but at the same time pushing they were to every student in the dance department. And they really inspired me. And literally, I think my freshman year of college, I knew that I wanted to teach in college. So in order to teach at a college or a university level, you have to have the master's degree. So I was, graduating with a bachelor's of arts in dance and political science. And during that time, I was able to also acquire a teaching certification, which allowed me to study pedagogy, and pedagogy is the study of teaching. So I was really crafting my skill set during college to learn about teaching, and with teaching dance, it's not just about teaching your toes and turning around in a circle. It's about understanding musicality. So I took lots of music classes to understand how music and movement work together. Also about teaching dance, you have to understand the body. So I had lots of biology and biomechanics and kinesiology courses to understand bones and ligaments and muscles and how to prevent injury in dancers training. And also there was some psychology there, of working human to human interaction and how to deal with different types of personalities. So of course I took, psychology classes and sociology classes, and all of those were so important to me becoming a better teacher once I made that step into teaching in college. So junior and senior year of college, while all of my friends were auditioning for dance companies, I was filling out graduate applications. And I applied to several graduate schools, and I ended up landing at the University of Arizona.
Did you dance in grad school as well?
So I have an MFA in dance, and my track in my master's program was in choreography. So I had spent my undergraduate years really sort of fine-tuning my craft as a teacher, but in graduate school, I really wanted to focus on choreography because I knew that as a teacher, I would also be creating lots of dances. So during that time, I was, doing lots and lots of courses on how to create. And I know it seems, okay, we'll just make up a dance. Well, it's actually a lot more complicated than that. And how much work really goes into making up a dance, a minute dance, a 10-minute dance, doing a lot of research on history. If I was doing some sort of historical perspective dance, which I did, I actually recreated a dance from the 18th century called Patakat. And it's really interesting how you can take so many different tracks and so many different avenues. But teaching and choreography at that time was where I wanted to be, and I knew that I wanted to teach in college.
That's amazing. And with each, I think that that's a little bit of the value of a liberal arts education, is because they do encourage you to take a whole bunch of classes in different fields and put them all together for your field. Because you learn so much, there's the psychology aspect, there's the biology aspect, anatomy aspect, musicality. It's bringing it all together to create this skill set that you can draw from to become a better choreographer or a better dancer or a better teacher as you're going along. That's amazing.
Yeah, and our professors really encouraged that. When each semester, when we were getting ready to sign up for our next set of courses, it was, well, hey, okay, so this is what you're thinking about doing. Why don't you consider taking this course just to complement? Maybe you'll learn something new. And so, yeah, I'm just mirroring your sentiments that taking as many courses, whether or not they are directly related to your major, are always beneficial.
Because it's just pieces, just pulling them together, skill sets.
Yeah, skill sets, exactly. And of course I was dancing all the way through. I mean, I was, my focus was ballet, but I was doing modern, I was doing jazz, I was doing hip hop and tap, which I'm terrible at, but I really forced myself to do tap. And I was dancing some of the most incredible pieces of choreography from the 19th and 20th centuries. And so I was really building my platform of understanding what it's like to be a dancer so that I could then offer that information to future dancers. So, if a dancer is going to be dancing Swan Lake, down the road, I was able and fortunate enough to dance Swan Lake. So I can express to them, how these arms feel, or how it feels to hit this count with this step, or how it feels to wear the costume, and how to, really find your inner swan. That was really important to me as well, that I continue to keep dancing and while I was also learning my other skill sets that I knew I would be passing along to future dancers.
It's funny you mentioned Swan Lake, because it's my daughter's favorite ballet. It's her favorite. We had to get, for Christmas, she got a music box with a ballerina in it, and it had to play Swan Lake. I didn't introduce it to her. I have no idea where she was introduced to Swan Lake, but she loves it.
Oh, well, first, let's just say Tchaikovsky was a genius. He was incredible. Swan Lake and Sleeping Beauty and the Nutcracker, and so many pieces of glorious music. And I remember when I was, 10 or 11 years old, I had a CD player, like a portable CD player that you would put over your ears, and I would go to bed listening to CDs at night. And I remember I had the Swan Lake CD and the Sleeping Beauty CD, all these CDs. And when I got to college and I started actually performing to that music that I would listen to night and night, night over and night over and night over and fall asleep to, it was like, I know this music inside and out, because I would listen to it for hours before I would go to bed.
Well, not only that helps too, because every beat, when the key's going to change, so you're not learning it for the first time either. So as a younger dancer, listen to your music.
Listen to your music. That's right. Even if you don't think you're ever going to dance to it, listen to the greats, listen to them, because one day they will cross your path.
After you got your MFA, what was your next step?
Right. So during my graduate program was a 2-year program. So my second year, I started throwing out my resume and my curriculum vitae and cover letters to universities across the country that were hiring adjunct faculty. So I knew I was probably not going to step into a full-time professorial position at a university being fresh out of graduate school. I mentioned I was at the University of Arizona, which is down in Tucson. And so I actually just looked north about 100 miles to the Phoenix area. And Phoenix, the dance community in Phoenix, is one of the most incredible in the entire country. They have dance in every single K through 12 public school. Every community college has an associate's degree in dance, and every 4-year university has a bachelor's degree in dance. And almost all the schools also offer master's degrees in dance. Literally, starting kindergarten, you can take dance in a structured school environment all the way through your career. And so the Maricopa Community College District has about 9 different community colleges within the Phoenix area. So I was sending my resume to Scottsdale Community College, Glendale Community College, Phoenix Community College, quite a few in that area. And the Scottsdale Community College actually bit. I couldn't believe it. And so they hired me on as an adjunct faculty right out of my master's program. And I was teaching ballet, I was teaching pointe, I was teaching the history of dance. It was a lecture course. I was teaching Introduction to Dance, which was kind of your humanities-based class that was not for dancers. Anybody in the university had to get their humanities credit. And so some of them would take Introduction to Dance thinking they would get an easy A, and it was not. But yeah, they took a chance on me, and that really started to spurn my love for teaching in college. And that was an adjunct faculty position. And eventually I acquired a full-time position at Glendale Community College in the same community college district.
When did you make the decision to move back to California and start KDA?
Well, I was in my 3rd year of directing the dance program at Glendale Community College, and I had come home for Christmas. And I had just gone out to eat with my mom and one of my best friends who was a dancer but living in LA at the time. We had met in Phoenix. And sure enough, there was a very good-looking gentleman sitting across the room. And we met that night, and literally that night we said, should we get married now or should we wait? We just knew. We knew. And so I went back to Arizona, and I, continued teaching my courses, and we continued to build our relationship. And I came to a point where I said, you know what, I think it's time for me to go home and create something new in my hometown. So with that decision, I moved home. I know it was for a man, but it was so much more. I saw my hometown of Bakersfield hungry for more dance opportunities. And I saw a niche that was not filled. And because of my experience from my collegiate experience and my arts administration experience and my professional performing career, I saw a niche that I could fill with my skill set.
So you created the Kern Dance Alliance pretty much from scratch. I remember at the very beginnings, it started with an idea. And now you have these incredible programs, including a math-centered program for 8th graders, I believe, that some of the dancers come in, some of your high school dancers come in and they assist with helping kids learn math through dance. Can you talk a little bit about that program? Because I never put those two together, and it's an incredible program. And I've talked to people who have helped with it, and I've talked to people who have been in it, and they just rave about it.
Yeah. So, before we go there, I want to touch on, during my time in Arizona, before the podcast, we were talking about your path is never from A to Z. There's lots of different directions you take. And I was fortunate enough, while I was doing my adjuncting at Scottsdale Community College, I took a full-time position with the Scottsdale Center for the Performing Arts. And that was an arts administration role. I truly had never had the opportunity to learn the arts as a business. I had learned about teaching, I had learned about creating, I had learned about being a dancer, but I had never really understood the other side of the arts, which is, how does it run? Who funds it? Where does the money come from? What are the logistics of putting on a show? I mean, there's so many elements. And during my time at Scottsdale Center for the Performing Arts, they hired me as a development officer, which means I was responsible for raising money for the Performing Arts Center. They had about a $10 million budget, and I was responsible for about raising $1 to $2 million a year during my time there. And I had never written a grant before. I had never had any kind of interaction with corporate sponsors or how to sell somebody a membership. Lots of different elements of business, right? Of how you make the dollars come in. And during that time, I had some really, really wonderful mentors that schooled me on the arts as a business. So moving forward, the moment I made the decision to launch Kern Dance Alliance, I now had collegiate experience, performing experience, teaching experience, choreographing experience, and more importantly, arts as a business experience. I could now speak to business professionals about my craft in a way that maybe they didn't quite understand because I had so many other skill sets behind me. So KDA launched in 2015 with the intent to support dance and the arts in Kern County, while also making dance more accessible to greater populations in our area through lots of different programs like Shine for Girls, the program you mentioned that combines math and dance for girls 6th to 8th grade.
That's incredible. And taking chances, right? Because you went into this role at the Performing Arts Center and you're like, I don't really know. I have to figure it out. I have the experience and I know what I need to do, but I don't know what I need to do. And then being able to apply that over, and like you said, talk to business professionals and understand how do you get people to, it's persuasive conversations. How do you get them to get on board with your idea? But then also, how do you serve the community at large?
That's right. And service has always been at my heart. I remember from a very young age doing lots of volunteer initiatives. And I've now come to this really interesting point in my life where my passion, which is dance, is now my career. But I'm also able to add this element of service that is so important to me and so important, I think, to lots of people in our community. And people understand service before they understand dancing. And so I'm able to really talk about, how volunteerism works and how important it is to give back to community. And the way I'm giving back to my community is with a whole bunch of other people that care as deeply, but we're just doing it through dance. And so, the math and dance program you were speaking about is really interesting because this was a really big moment for Kern Dance Alliance because now we were saying that dance is beyond pointing your toes and wearing a tutu on the stage. We can actually teach a young girl struggling with algebra how to do algebra better through movement and dance.
Which is incredible. People don't think about this as much, but with music and the arts, there is a lot of science and math associated with music alone. You have to count. There's certain beats. How long do you hold the note? How long do you hold the movement? And to be able to match those two together to make math actually fun.
That's right. And we know that students learn in so many different ways. And what Shine for Girls does is it combines all 4 different ways of learning. You've got a visual aspect, you've got an audio aspect, you've got a kinetic aspect, which is the movement piece. And so we're combining all these different ways of learning. And I mean, I was a girl that struggled with math. And I think that's why I fought so hard to get this program running, is because I never wanted a girl to struggle with math like I did. And you're absolutely right. If somebody were to tell me, because dance was so important in my life, especially in middle school, if somebody were to tell me I could become a better mathematician by using my dance skills, I would have said, no way. No way, I can't do this, until somebody showed me. And then I would say, oh my gosh, now I have an A+ in math because somebody has taught it to me in a completely different way that I never expected to learn.
In a way that makes sense to you.
Exactly.
What other programs has KDA created?
Right. So, like I said, our Shine for Girls Math plus Dance equals Success was sort of our first educational program. We've also launched Books in Motion, which is a program that teaches children how to read through dance. So Kern Dance Alliance partners with lots of different dance studios in our community, and we pay them to go to take books on tour to all of the libraries in our community. So, for instance, they might choose Goldilocks and the Three Bears. They will perform Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And then after the performance, they will teach the children at the library the Goldilocks and the Three Bears choreography to just really kind of push the themes of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Then after that, they get to do a little crafting session where they actually create maybe a bear, made out of a brown paper bag, or maybe Goldilocks on a popsicle stick. And during that time, we assess the kids and we ask them what they've learned. And for many of them, this program is geared towards kindergarten to 3rd grade. And in our community, we know that illiteracy is a really, really big problem for our students. And we also know that if children don't know how to read by the time they're in third grade, they likely will not be successful in any of their educational endeavors. So what we're doing is we're combining now literacy and dance to inspire children how to read. We don't expect them to, open a book and all of a sudden read within that 45 minutes. But what's happening is they're watching a dance performance come to life, or a book come to life through a dance performance. And now they're inspired to take that book, open it up, and even if they can't read the words, they're inspired to look at the words and look at the pictures and try to figure out what they mean. And that's the creative part of this, is it's the inspiration and the motivation to look at the book and eventually acquire the skills to be able to read the book.
It's incredible how you've been able to take all of these things that you're passionate about and to create this entire organization that utilizes all your different skill sets. But then again, you've pulled together an amazing team, and you have a board, and you have people that run marketing and social media and connections and things like that. So you're essentially running a business right now.
That's right. Yeah. And I mean, I cannot take full credit for Kern Dance Alliance. There have been lots of people that have given a lot of their time to make this engine run. And I really believe that the strength and the success of Kern Dance Alliance is because we pulled together a lot of people with different skill sets. I firmly believe in surrounding myself with people that know stuff that I don't know. I don't want a bunch of Andreas all in the room at the same exact time. I want to be surrounded by lawyers and accountants and teachers and doctors and all different types of skills that can bring different perspectives to the conversation to really create the best outcome. Kern Dance Alliance is, number one, a business. We exist because of really strong and aggressive fundraising campaigns. We have incredible donors, we have incredible members, and because of their generosity, Kern Dance Alliance is able to run. And after that, Kern Dance Alliance is an arts administration organization. We administer arts programs to our community. And after that, Kern Dance Alliance is a support system. There's almost 90 different dance organizations throughout Kern County, and we provide support to dance studio owners and to dancers via grants and scholarships. We want to see them succeed. If there are no training grounds for dancers, then Kern Dance Alliance does not exist. We need to have our dance businesses be extremely successful so that we can continue to contribute to California's economy. It's really important. We talk about the economy and how important that is for oil companies and healthcare. But the creative economy of California is an $8 billion industry. And without those jobs and our creative forces, California's economy is not as strong. And we can talk a lot about how much money goes into the economy just by going to see a show. So say you're taking your family to see the Nutcracker. First, you have to purchase the tickets, and that goes to fund the facility that's, hosting the performance. Plus, you're paying all of the lighting designers, and you're paying the costume director, and you're paying the music director. And not to mention, maybe it's a date night out, you probably had to get a babysitter, so you had to pay the babysitter. And maybe hopefully you're getting dinner before, so now you're paying, dollars to go to that restaurant. Plus you're paying the gas. I mean, it's kind of this trickle down effect of, how dollars are spent when we're talking about tourism and our creative economy. But KDA is playing a role in California's creative economy by providing resources and monetary funding to keep dance and the arts moving.
Andrew, this is all amazing. Seeing you go from 7 years old, falling in love with dance, and then creating that idea of, I think that I can bring this back. And like you said, Kern County was hungry for it. And seeing that need and fulfilling that need and using all of your skills that you learned through poli-sci and dance and teaching and grant writing and the business of arts, and pulling it all together to create this amazing organization that supports a county that is 1 million strong is incredible. To be able to take something that you're really passionate about and then to see how you're inspiring and supporting future generations.
That's right.
It's amazing. And I know that there's a lot of dancers that only think like, I'll dance in a company and then I will retire and then I will, and then I'll teach, or maybe I won't, or we'll go on something else. To see you pull together all these different skills and create something is incredible.
Thank you, Kat. That means a lot.
what advice do you have to dancers right now who are thinking, maybe I want to be professional, maybe I don't? What advice do you have for them?
Well, I think first of all, they need to consider how many professions are in the realm of dance. I think the first things that come to mind, of course, are I'm a teacher, I'm a dancer, or I'm a choreographer, but there's so much more. Maybe you have a passion for history. And maybe you have a passion for anthropology. There are dance anthropologists that travel around the world doing research on tribes. I mean, we talk about like African dance, for example. There is so much interesting information about learning the dances of Africa. So, dance anthropologists, they insert themselves with tribes in Africa and they learn all about their dances and their ritualistic culture and what it means to their culture. What dance means to their culture. When I used to be a college professor, I used to have a chapter where I taught about dance and ritual, and we always said the tribe that does not dance dies.
Wow.
And it's really true because dance is communication. And if they were not using dance to communicate with each other, the likelihood of the tribe continuing on would fail. And, we danced before we could speak. I mean, we're not just talking about African tribes. We're talking about all of humanity. We had to use movement to speak to each other before there was ever any kind of vocabulary. So dance anthropology is so interesting to me and many other people. That's one route you can take. Maybe you actually really do love healthcare and the medical profession. There are dance physical therapists that are hired by dance companies across the country. In fact, the Harkness Center for Dance in New York City has an entire wing in its hospital devoted to dance science, where doctors of dance essentially are working with professional dancers to help the longevity of their career and to diagnose different ailments they might be experiencing. So dance anthropology, dance science, history, of course, a dance historian is a very interesting place to go to. I mean, just researching history in America, America's folk dance is the square dance. And the square dance was actually started in France and it made its way over to America where it kind of, morphed and changed. And eventually at the turn of the 20th century, Henry Ford, of course, of Ford Motor Company, was one of the guys completely behind this, like printing brochures on how to do the square dance and like mass producing them and sending them out to communities all across America. I mean, what a really interesting history. So there's that element. Of course, lighting design, costume design. There's so many different avenues, and I'm happy to talk with any students, that want to know more about the careers that they can take in dance that's beyond teaching and dancing and choreographing.
Now, I have read at some point, because I have a costume background, that there is a shortage of tutu makers because it's a very couture process. And so if we have any students out there, it's a dyeing specialty. So if you want to learn from a tutu maker, you will have a job forever because there's a shortage of that skill set.
You're absolutely right. In fact, I took a tour of Ballet Arizona last year. They have a brand new $10 million facility. It's gorgeous. And part of the facility includes a costume zone. And I mean, there was just sewing machines set up, in a line. And there are about 15 people in there just sewing away on not just tutus, but all different types of costumes. But yeah, I mean, if you have an interest in like fashion design or, creating clothing and you have a dance background as well, those dance companies will eat you up if you know how to sew, especially if you understand the craft, like you said, of creating a tutu, which is such a highly skilled skill set to have.
And then, point shoes and the multi-million or billion-dollar industry of tights and leotards and shoes. And, it's, Nike doesn't just fund the sports that we've heard of, football and basketball. And, there's Capezio and Danskin. And so you could get into more the business end of, products for dancers as well.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got the glorious Tyler Peck, who is a principal dancer with the New York City Ballet, but she's from Bakersfield, and she actually has her own leotard line that she created with dance wrappers. And, she's a professional ballerina, but she also dabbles in other aspects of business. And she has an entire line called Tyler Peck Designs where she sells leotards. And I think it's just leotards right now, but I'm sure she'll dabble into more apparel later.
Only leotards for the moment.
Only for the moment. Yeah, she's creating an empire, that's for sure. But yeah, definitely, another aspect, maybe you're really into social media, marketing. There's an entire avenue of dance industry that needs people to tell their stories, managing their social media accounts and creating the branding for a dance company. That is another job that you can definitely take on. And it's helpful if you know dance, if you're going to go work for a dance company, maybe not necessarily as a dancer, but in the business end of it.
You do have to really understand, the language and what the problems that dancers face and the audience to go into the administrative aspect.
Exactly. And I think it's important. These are all paying positions. I mean, there's so many times where it's like, oh, you're going to be a dance major? That's cute. What are you going to do with that? And it's like, well, actually, let me tell you, I can acquire a 6-figure career with my dance degree. I might not be dancing on a stage, but I'm using my dance degree in so many different ways. And this is certainly a feasible, career to take. I mean, the truth is, we have to face the facts. Very few dancers make that 6-figure salary, but you can definitely make that 6-figure salary as a teacher, as a choreographer, as a dance anthropologist, as a dance scientist, as a dance doctor. There's so many ways to make money doing dance.
And I think that that's the biggest mistake that a lot of students make, is they think that there's only one path. But this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. There's so many jobs out there.
Yeah, exactly. And, I can only speak for myself and my own experience. Beyond the dollars, the joy I feel from continuing to work in a field that is completely my passion serves everything for me. My cup filleth over. I every day, I'm a mommy, and of course I'm fulfilled by my family, but I also have my intellectual needs, and my intellectual needs happen to be my passion. My passion happens to be dance. And I am fulfilled every day in doing the work that I'm doing, because it's about service, it's about my community, it's about using my passion in a way that really impacts every single person that is associated with Kern Dance Alliance. I mean, in the last 5 years, we've seen 30,000 people come through our programs. We've raised $250,000. I mean, it just feels really good to be justified via, our assessments, and knowing that we're really making a valid impact in our community. That's recognized by our mayor, and it's recognized by our legislators, and it's recognized by some of the most prominent business people in our community.
Andrea, do you have any more advice for our students?
I think just one more tidbit of information. If you're a dancer, and if dance is not your craft, if you're a dancer and dance is not going to be your career, I still encourage you to dance. And the reason I say that is because the skills that dancers acquire is very different from your average bear. Dancers are disciplined, they're self-motivated, they're multitasking, they are detail-oriented. Dancers know how to find solutions to the most tiniest of problems. And an example of that would be, learning to do a pirouette, or taking that pirouette from 1 turn to 3 turns to 4 turns. And the tiny little tweaks that you have to make to your body to accomplish those kinds of achievements is so detail oriented that only you and your body understand. And those skills, detail-oriented, time management, multitasking, disciplined, self-motivated, those are all skills that every employer is looking for beyond the dance community. You can take those skills into any industry and succeed. So long story short, keep dancing, because whether you know it or not, the skills you are acquiring are going to make you successful, whether it's in the dance world or in a completely different other sector.
Andrea, thank you so much for sharing your story and all your great, amazing advice for our students. We're going to make sure that we put Kern Dance Alliance in the show notes, so students want to look up all the amazing programs and perhaps how to support as well.
Thank you, Kat. And I do want to acknowledge that Kern Dance Alliance, we do have a student internship program. So if there are students out there that are interested in getting involved with Kern Dance Alliance, we're happy to, bring you underneath our wing and teach you more about the fine art of arts administration and give you a sense of service through dance.
Thank you so much, Andrea. We'll put that in the show notes as well.
Thank you, Kat. I really appreciate being here with you. Good luck to all of the students.
I want to thank Andrea so much for coming on the show and sharing her journey. And I hope, listeners, that you learned a little bit about how you can develop skills in a bunch of different areas and bring them together to really make some amazing change. Andrea has done such a great job with the Kern Dance Alliance and in everything that she's been involved in. And so I highly recommend that if you're not already involved with the Kern Dance Alliance, that you get involved. If you're outside of the Kern County area, I highly encourage you to get involved in the performing arts, because they just pay off so well, because there's a business end to arts. There are so many opportunities for you to get involved and to really hone in your skills, build empathy and critical thinking skills. The arts are amazing. So I highly encourage you to get involved. I hope that you've learned a little bit more about possible careers in dance. We'll put those in the show notes as well. I know that Andrea talked about dance archaeology and being a dance historian and choreographer and going into the business of performing arts. There's just so many opportunities there. If you have a episode you'd like us to feature, a major you would like us to feature, please contact us. Our email is info@majorlyundecided.com. You can get us on social media at Majorly Undecided, and of course on our website, majorlyundecided.com. We are offering a few free resources in addition to this podcast, including the quick guide to deciding your major. So if you're completely and utterly stuck, I guide you step by step through getting unstuck and starting to evaluate what you really like and what might be an amazing direction for you. Again, that's on our website, majorlyundecided.com. Thank you so much, Andrea, for joining us once more. It has been an amazing interview. As always, listeners, we will see you next week.